What's up guys, CO here with the first week of the NES Monotype Offseason Tournament. If you missed my little preview video that went up a couple days ago, I'll try to remember to link it in the description. But basically what we have here is a short 8-week tournament in between our NES seasons. We didn't want to jump straight into another season like right after Sun and Moon came out, just because we kind of want to give it some time to figure it out. So this will be going up for the next 8, hopefully 10 to 12 weeks, because that would mean I made the postseason again. But this will be going up for at least the next 8 weeks, so you get to watch me explore the steel type as I go up against different typings. For week 1, we actually got pretty lucky and got paired up against fairy type. The Miami Heatran, our fairy, coached by Nidoking. I don't think he has a YouTube, but if he does, I'll link it down below too. But since we're paired with fairy, we actually obviously have a pretty big advantage as steel. There's not really very much that fairy can even do to steel, like super effectively with stab, because there's no fairy fire type or fairy ground type yet. So the worst that they can do is set up and try to hit us just with a super effective move. But nothing's gonna have stab, so as long as we team build, we should be, we should be okay. Starting off in our little team preview thing here, we have Clamps the Scizor making a return from Season 1, with a set that I actually never used in Season 1, interestingly enough. I did use Sword Stance and Agility in Season 1, like separately, but I never actually combined them both on Scizor using a Focus Sash set. And honestly, I'm not even really sure I need Bug Bite. Like, I've been going back and forth between Bug Bite and Iron Head, just to have, like, this thing basically be a steel killing machine, pretty much. But to be perfectly honest, I'm probably really only going to be going for Bullet Punch anyway, just because it's priority and it lessens my need to have to go for agility. But if there is a situation where I see an agility sweep as more useful than a sword stance sweep, maybe Iron Head or Metal Claw or something would be worth it. I don't know, I'll think about it before the battle. I'm just gonna, I guess I can explain that too. I'm not doing full team builders and stuff. I'm just gonna be editing these into the beginning of the episodes before I do my post-com and stuff. I don't think I'm going to be spending quite as much time team building and going in depth on what they could be bringing and stuff, just because they have an entire type to choose from instead of a roster. So it makes it a little bit harder to break down and kind of makes it so I just kind of have to cover as many bases as I can. So next up we have a pretty exciting Mega that I'm actually very excited that I got Steel, because I get to alternate between Mega Aggron, Mega Scizor, and Mega Steelix if I want to. And I do see myself actually bringing all 3 at this point, or at some point in the season. So, spoilers to other coaches, you gotta plan for all 3. But this week I thought Mega Aggron would be the best, just because, like I said, there's really nothing that he can do to break through. Even if he sets up with like a Togekiss or something and tries to go for flamethrowers or Aura Spheres, especially defensive Aggron is not OHKO'd by anything but a crit, like pretty much ever. This thing gets up to 230 defense, I think, after it Mega Evolves. It actually gets 140 attack, which is very, very, very high for a wall. So Heavy Slam, which is a move that does damage based on weight, should be doing a ton of damage, and I'm pretty excited. Stealth Rock is there if he brings Pokemon like Togekiss and stuff that I expect. I'll try to go over a couple of Pokemon that I expect him to bring, by the way, after I preview my team, but I just kind of wanted to get through this really quick. But yeah, pretty basic Aggron, honestly. I mainly just need it for rocks. Anything else is gravy. Next up we have kind of a surprise Pokemon here, I guess, just because I don't think he'll be expecting a Scarf Magneton. But the reason I opted for a Scarf Magneton over a Scarf Magnezone is because I was able to make Scarf Magneton a little bit bulkier. If you don't know, Magneton actually loses 10 speed when it Mega Evolves, or when it evolves into Magnezone, and base 60s don't really make the best use of Choice Scarfs and stuff. Like, I think I could have made it work, so it would have been like a max speed Scarf would have outsped pretty much everything that I needed to. But by choosing to go with Magneton instead, it does two things, actually. It bluffs that this isn't a Violite Pokemon that's going to be really hard to take down, and it allows me to possibly get off Analytic Thunderbolts, because he does not have a ground type that he can choose from. And Analytic, if you don't know, multiplies an attack by 1.3 if it's the Pokemon, or if the Pokemon using it moves second. Which may seem weird on a Choice Scarf, because the Choice Scarf is meant to outspeed stuff, but if he tries switching into this, basically, thinking that he can like switch in and go for an Earthquake or something, he's going to be taking a ton of damage from a Thunderbolt. Or even if I just want to Volt Switch out and end up getting the momentum, it's going to do a lot of damage, because Magneton hits really, really hard with 120 special attack. Sorry this thing keeps popping up, by the way. I need to figure out a way to lay out my screen a little bit better. Maybe this will work, actually. Should be better. Okay. Next up, we have Dual Wield the Doublade. I've honestly only used the Doublade like once or twice before, but I figure I'm going to have to get pretty comfortable with it, because it's a fighting immunity that I need pretty badly. So I'll use this set. I'm not 100% sold on it, honestly. I've gone back and forth between using Swords Dance on this thing and possibly Facade. But the only Pokemon that he really has that can Willow me easily is a Will-O-Wisp Gardevoir. And honestly, if he brings Gardevoir, I kind of expect it to be his Mega, more than just like a regular Choice Scarf Gardevoir, I guess. But if he doesn't bring Choice Scarf Gardevoir, I should be able to set up on pretty much everything. Even with only 49 special defense, the Violite and 252 EVs makes it so I can pretty much take a hit if I need to. I'm not going to take it like super well or anything, but I will take one hit if I need to. If they attack me physically, it's not going to do anything, to be perfectly honest. But I expect them to try to attack me with like a Flamethrower from a Togekiss or something like that. And I should be able to live one of those and then do some pretty good damage with a +2 Shadow Sneak or an Iron Head if he tries to switch on me or whatever. But I do think that this thing's going to do some damage. I didn't do any practice games with Super or anything this week, so I kind of just had to ladder with a level 100 version of this team. So practice was a little bit weird, I guess, but I think Swords Dance will eventually, or ultimately, work out a little bit better. Next up, we have Dr. Tran the Heatran. I actually expect this set to put in quite a lot of work, to be honest. Mainly because I am scared to death of a Clefable, and this thing should outspeed most Clefables, unless it's like some weird, like, super offensive set with a ton of speed investment, which I honestly don't expect. I expect it to be a bulky setup, Combine set. But this will basically be able to handle it. I can use Taunt to shut down Combine, Soft-Boiled, stuff like that. The set originally actually had Toxic instead of HP Poison, and I may just change that to Flash Cannon ultimately, but I wanted some kind of poison coverage on this team, just in case he brought something like an Azumarill or a Dedenne that could resist the Steel coverage. I wanted something that could still hit them super effective. This was Toxic also at one point, and Toxic Protect seemed to work pretty well. But honestly, I'm kind of trying to go for a more offensive approach, so it didn't really fit this team specifically, I guess. But it is still specially defensive, pretty much able to take, honestly, anything specially defensive. It's very, very bulky, even though it doesn't look like it has the most amazing stats. And even uninvested, it still does quite a lot with Lava Plumes, and I have a 30% chance to burn, so it's like a Fire-type Scald. And Flash Fire is obviously a very, very, very important fire immunity for this team, because otherwise Flamethrowers wreck me. And finally, we have Blitzkrieg the Skarmory. I did not realize this team build was taking this long, but whatever. Pretty standard, and honestly, I don't even really think I'm going to need Defog, because the only real Stealth Rockers he can choose from are the Stealth Rock Clefable or a Stealth Rock Mawile, I think. He could also try to set up spikes with Klefki, and possibly Mawile. I don't remember if Mawile gets spikes too. But if he brings Klefki, Clefable, or Mawile, I'll pretty much regret it if I don't have defog. Rocks obviously don't do a lot to most steel types, but if you start spike stacking me, it'll do a lot, just because spikes do a set percentage instead of a percentage based on how weak you are to rocks, I guess. So just in case, I need to have defog on here to keep the focus sash intact for clamps, and then roost iron head and spikes is there just basically to be a wall and set up spikes if I need to. So I said this wasn't going to take very long, and it took a while, sorry, but I will end this now and switch over to the post-com when I have that, I guess. So I will see you guys when I have that video done. Completely forgot I was going to do this, but I forgot I was going to go over some of the Pokemon that he could have actually been bringing against me. I very much expect to see Clefable, Azumarill, and Togekiss, just because I think that they handle steel types the best out of anything on his team. A possible, like, honestly, those are the three that I expect to see, and then everything else is a toss-up. His Mega is obviously going to be either Mega Gardevoir, Mega Altaria, or Mega Audino. It depends on what direction he wants to take his team, but I think Mega Altaria, like a Dragon Dance set with EQ, would probably work best against me. I'd be kind of surprised to see Mega Gardevoir, just because a Bullet Punch, like, even without +2 from clamps, is going to do a ton. And if he sees that calc, I think he might be scared to bring it. And Mega Audino actually might be a kind of interesting bring for him if he just wants to bring it and, like, not Mega Evolve right away and kind of just use regular Audino as more of a regenerator pivot, I guess. But I'd be kind of surprised, honestly, if he was willing to dip that far down. I scouted a couple of his games from last season, and he doesn't seem like that defensive of a player. So I'd be more expecting Mega Altaria out of anything. Because Clefable, Azumarill, Togekiss, and Mega Altaria don't really deal with physical Pokemon well, I'm expecting to see Gramble, and actually wouldn't really be too surprised to see Mawile, just to have at least one Intimidator on his team, pretty much. And then the last thing could honestly be anything. I'm expecting something maybe like a Klefki, just to spike stack or get hazards up. But yeah, now I am actually going to switch over to that video. Be right back. What's up, guys? CO here with the second attempt at this post-com, because the first one was a train wreck. If you watched my team builder, which actually went for a little bit longer than I expected it to, you'd see that I actually predicted this team fairly well. I was caught off guard by Mega Gardevoir, just because Mega Scizor, or even just regular Scizor, honestly, does a ton to it with a Bullet Punch. So I was kind of surprised to see that, but everything else was pretty well accounted for. I didn't expect him to bring both Mawile and Granbull. I did expect him to bring one for Intimidate, but I didn't actually expect dual Intimidate, which kind of shuts down my Swords Dance sweep unless I can get a handle on it. So I'll have to play a little bit more offensively than I was planning on originally, I guess. But just looking at this team, I predict a Calm Mind, Clefable with like Soft Boiled, possibly Stealth Rocks, although I'd honestly expect Stealth Rocks more on Mawile. Gardevoir, I expected to just be a regular Mega, possibly Calm Mind also, but I was just surprised to see Mega Gardevoir at all. Togekiss, I expected to just be a Roost Defog set, possibly a Thunder Wave, I guess, if he wanted to try to just flinch hacks me down. Given the fact that he was at a type disadvantage here, I wouldn't have put it past him. And honestly, if I was at this big of a type disadvantage, I probably would have too. Like I said, Mawile and Granbull I expected to be dual Intimidate core. Mawile possibly having Stealth Rocks and like Sucker Punch and stuff like that, and Granbull just being physical offense that he kind of needed on his typing. And Whimsicott's probably just going to be the annoying prankster set that it always is. I was also kind of surprised to see that he brought Whimsicott over something a little bit bulkier, but I don't have a problem with that because I can outspeed if I get an agility up with Scizor and just kill it with Bullet Punch pretty easy. So looking at his team, I really don't have like a bad lead, if I'm being honest. I could just lead Magneton and Volt Switch out, but I decided to lead Aggron here because in most situations I could just go for Stealth Rocks right away. I could also T-Wave something if I want to, or if he just leads a fairy that's weak to me, I could just Heavy Slam and probably kill it. He leads Togekiss, and it's at this point that I actually realized that there could be a potential like way for him to do a lot of damage to me, and that's if he's like super aggressive and just goes for a turn 1 Nasty Plot and then just tries to kill me with Aura Sphere. Even a +2 Aura Sphere is actually not going to kill Mega Aggron, so I can afford to at least play around with this thing for 1 turn, but I do have to be careful. I decided to stay in and T-Wave because there's nothing on his team that wants to take it, and he doesn't have a Heal Beller unless Togekiss is a Heal Beller, and I want to figure that out pretty early. He goes for T-Wave of his own, so I can't say I'm too surprised because, again, he's at a pretty big type disadvantage. Air Slash does absolutely nothing to Steel types, but when you have a 60% chance to flinch and a like 25 or 50% chance or whatever it is to paralyze, it doesn't really matter how much damage it does if it's consistent. So we're both parried. I realized that nothing on his team obviously wants to take a Heavy Slam. He is very aggressive and goes for the Nasty Plot, so I'm glad I stayed in and just was aggressive. But I'm pretty sure I got a low roll because that in most instances should have probably killed. You can see the Aura Sphere does nothing even at +2, and already Frank the Tank here is doing quite a lot of damage. Honestly, there's really nothing that he wants to switch into this, but he just goes for his Mawile. And interestingly, you'll see that the turn switched, but I wasn't intimidated, so that means that this Mawile is actually Sheer Force. It could also be Hypercutter, I guess, but there's no universe where a Hypercutter Mawile like is worth running, I guess. So I instantly assumed that the thing's Sheer Force and probably gonna go for an Earthquake or something to try to do damage. So I just switch into Skarmory and decide to save Frank. He goes for a Power Punch, which is interesting because of Sheer Force. It removes the +1 attack boost. So I think that might have been a misplan on his part, I guess. So I just go for Spikes because I figure there's nothing he can do to hit me. Fire Fang has no chance of burn and no chance of flinch because of Sheer Force, and it's only doing 40%. So I figure I can just heal up, see if he has anything that does more damage to me, and if not, just get more spikes up, pretty much. So that's what I'm going to do here. And interestingly, he switches in Clefable and it takes spikes damage. I was not expecting this because if you listen to any of my preview stuff, you'll know that I thought that he was for sure going to be bringing a Magic Guard Calm Mind set, just to set up and obviously not take damage from entry hazards and status and stuff like that. But because he switched in and took spikes, this showed me that he was unaware, which if you don't know means that I can't set up on it because it's just going to ignore my stat gains and stuff. So I instantly started getting pretty scared because while I didn't expect this set, it could do a lot of damage if I just sit here and let Clefable set up. So I try to do what I can and hope that this thing doesn't have Cosmic Power or something. I actually hope that it has Calm Mind so it doesn't get a defense boost here, because then I can actually just 3-hit KO this thing with Skarmory. But because he has Cosmic Power, he obviously gets that defense boost and is able to live. So I'm a little scared here, switching into Scizor on another Cosmic Power to just try to do what I can. Honestly, in hindsight, this is actually a misplay because I think I switched into Clamps to just set up alongside him and go for a Swords Dance and Bullet Punch. But because he's unaware, I could set up to +6 and it'll do as much damage as if I just started Bullet Punching right away. So I scout the damage to see what it is. It's obvious that he's like pretty much full Fizz Def. Takes that extremely well and goes for Wish, so there's literally no reason for me to stay in with Clamps anymore. I make the switch I probably should have made right away and go into Heatran to try to taunt this thing. Luckily, because I switched into Scizor to pivot first, I ended up drawing the Fire type attack and getting Flash Fire. I'm gonna go ahead and say that this was intentional, but it really wasn't, to be perfectly honest. I pretty much just switched wrong the first time and made up for it this time. But now Lava Plumes are doing more, and I'm able to taunt this thing and prevent it from setting up more. Taunt's not the most common move on Heatran, so I guess I'm not really expecting him to see it coming here. I'm going to actually rewind that because I think my video lagged a little bit. So I go for a taunt, he gets pissed off and can't Cosmic Power anymore, so this is perfect. There's nothing that he can do to me but start going for what I assume is stored power, which I resist, and I'm fully specially defensive, so it's not going to do shit to me. And because he's unaware, I can actually try to go for a burn here, which is what I end up doing. As you can see, even at +2/+2, stored power does absolutely nothing, and I have leftovers, so it's literally only doing 1%. He can't set up anymore, so at this point he has to switch out. He goes into Gardevoir here. I'm assuming because it's the only thing on his team that can actually take a Lava Plume. As good as Gramble is, it's not very especially defensive at all, and I get lucky here and get a burn too. So even though he's trying to synchronize that back to me, I'm a fire type, so good luck with that. So I know he's gonna Mega Evolve here. I don't know what he's gonna go for. He could have Focus Blast. He very likely has Focus Blast, if I'm being honest. So I decided to go for Protect here. I'm already at full, but I might as well just get a little bit of extra burn damage. He does have Focus Blast, unsurprisingly. So this is the reason Doublade's on this team, is to take Focus Blast and stuff like that. So literally zero reason for me to not go for a Swords Dance here, unless he gets a crit with Flamethrower. I don't even think a crit Flamethrower would kill, honestly, because I'm a Violite, but there's literally no reason for me to not go for a Swords Dance and just start firing off +2 Iron Heads and or Shadow Sneaks. So looking at that damage, actually crit Flamethrower might have actually killed, but he doesn't have Flamethrower. I don't even know if Gardevoir gets Flamethrower now that I'm talking about it like this. I also haven't been fading stuff, but whatever. So Mawile comes in here. There's really nothing that Mawile wants to do because I have so much physical defense. Sucker Punch does a lot. I'm not sure if Fire Fang would have done more. I don't think it would have, actually. So Sucker Punch is the best move that he could have gone for there, in case I was trying to Shadow Sneak or something. But Iron Head obviously just one-shots. So Doublade actually putting in a little bit more work here than I expected. And you can see by the team that he has left that nothing really wants to switch into a +2 Doublade. He's going to go into Whimsicott here and hope that I switch out, but there's no reason for me to not Shadow Sneak and try to get significant damage off on this thing before going down. I don't necessarily mind Doublade dropping, even though it could have probably done a little bit more damage. But this basically allows me to get a clean switch into Scizor for free. There's nothing that he can do to stop this Bullet Punch, and something on his team is going to have to take it. So he just tries to get a Leech Seed up, which is probably a good play on his part, just to try to live basically anything else. Obviously he's kind of backed into a corner here, but he's, in my opinion, making the right plays to be able to try to get himself out of it. I sack Frank the Tank here because there's not really very much it can do, and quite frankly I don't want this thing to become setup fodder later for Clefable. If I get unlucky with Paras and stuff, he could bring it back with stored power, especially if he has like HP Fire or something like that. So I have to be careful and basically just try to minimize the amount of ways I can lose this game, I guess. So I get another free switch here, and I'm not intimidated, so I just go into Skarmory and start firing off Iron Heads pretty much. I get lucky here and get a crit. Pretty sure it still would have been a 2-hit KO, so I guess it didn't really matter. But I'm able to take out Clefable, which is good because that thing was scary. Stored power against Steel types probably wasn't, in my opinion, like the most amazing planning here. But as you can see, this Gramble is putting in a lot of work. Pretty proud to see my boy Gramble doing stuff, even when it's not on my team. But yeah, in my opinion, Nito had a good game. He obviously had a severe type disadvantage, but we are actually going to get to experience that next week, because we are going up against the guy that beat us 4-0 twice last season, and he has fire type, which obviously steel type is super weak to. So stay tuned for that, because that'll be interesting. I don't really know how I'm gonna end this video, to be perfectly honest, so I guess I'm just gonna cut it off here. Good game again, Nito. Check out the subreddit at the top. And yeah, I'm pretty rusty with commentary because it's been a couple of weeks, but I will get better at it. See you guys next week, where we take on the Mad Danny, coaching fire. Worst intro. Worst outro. Oh my god. I'm just gonna go now. Bye, guys.